Good evening, good evening.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to YouTube Model Builders Tuesday night presentation. Tonight we have the great pleasure of having James from JLMI 2000. He does reviews on his YouTube channel. I think everybody has watched his YouTube videos before. I'm Dude Lindler from Crooked Fingers Railroad, and tonight's presentation will be reviews. Any questions on reviews on manufacturers? Questions on different the differences between the manufacturers, etc., etc. Just like to remind everybody about the YouTube Model Builders Emag Hangouts and the live show. The Emag is bi-monthly. The Emag comes out next time. It will come out this month in July. The Hangouts is every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. There's something a little different going on with the Hangouts now. There's me, Troy, Barry, and Gino Sharp. We are all doing once a month shows. We're getting guests to come on our presentations. Some really good information going on with those presentations. If you guys want to see the schedule, just go to YouTubeModelBuilders.com, and the schedule is there. The live show is once a month. The next live show is July 16th, and those start at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. They're always on a Saturday. And then just to let everybody know, we are doing the Big Build Contest. All the information for that is on YouTube Model Builders as well. You can go on there and sign up for the Big Build Contest. I think it ends sometime in September. They got a lot of great prizes going on for that. All the information and instructions and rules are on the YouTubeModelBuilders.com as well. IMRRO.com. If you go to his YouTube channel, he's got a couple videos explaining on how the contest runs. So go there and watch those videos. It gives you some pretty good input on the Big Build Contest. Another thing I want to let everybody know that Model Man Mike is kind of out of the show right now. He has some family issues that's going on. He had to come back to the States. Everybody's kind of been wondering what's been going on with him a little bit. And so he will be back in, hopefully soon, but he might be out of the stream for a little while. But anyways, further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to James. Any questions that you guys have, just type it into the Q&A, and I can read them off to James. Anybody that is in the panel tonight, if you could leave your mic muted. If you have a question, go ahead and unmute your mic and ask some questions, or you can write them into the chat, and I can read them off. So here we go. Here is James.
Hey guys, welcome to I guess my first hangout, at least with this group of folks. So I'm glad to be here. From what I understand, we're just going to go over my review process a little bit. But before we start, the reason that I wanted to go ahead and share this with you guys, I didn't come up with the idea by any means, but the reason I wanted to share this with you guys is because I honestly think that the more reviews out there on YouTube, the better in terms of information. I'm going to miss stuff, being just 6 years in the hobby, and some folks will catch things that I'll miss by being more detailed, or some folks have more time on their hands than I do, and they can do more in-depth reviews. So I honestly think that with the more reviews on YouTube, the better the folks are that are looking to purchase whatever the item is. That they can just do a simple YouTube search. They can watch a mashup of whatever videos and get their opinion on the model or the item that way. And that's what I do when I'm purchasing stuff. Just yesterday I was on looking for a mattress, and I saw one review where this mattress was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and another one where it was horrible. But the one that I decided to go with was the one that had the most information and had the information to back it up, their assertion. So I encourage everybody to kind of take what I've got and do their own reviews on items. People ask me all the time, hey, do you have any issues with me doing this review? I know you just published your review on this item, or you're about to publish your review on this item, and I have no issues with that because it's just better for the folks to get more information on reviews. So with that said, we're going to take a look at an Athearn locomotive. It's the NMRA from last year, which was in Cleveland. It's the Norfolk Southern SD40-2. It's not going to be a review like you see on my channel. It's going to be what I do for the reviews as I'm kind of going over the model. So before we even really go to look at the model, I will tell you guys that I do research based on what the manufacturer puts out to see if their assertions are met. If they say it's got a 5-pole skew-wound motor and it doesn't, or it's a quiet 5-pole skew-wound motor, I'll see if it's quiet or not, and that's going to be obvious in the video. So I look at what the manufacturer has to say about the item. Obviously the MSRP I spurt out, and then I try to find whatever decent price or tell you guys what I paid or what price I found. And then I sometimes look at prototype photos depending on how familiar I am with the item. If it's an SD70 ACE, I've seen them everywhere. I see them when I close my eyes to go to bed at night, so I don't really need to look at that. But if it's something I'm not familiar with, I'll look at it. I don't go into the super details because I think the video does it for the people that are looking to see whether some little doohickeys hanging off the underside of the locomotive, So, and I just don't mention everything. I just kind of mention whether the dimensions in general are correct, whether there's any blaring errors, any wide spread errors, like an Athearn locomotive I'll be reviewing later next month has it has a wide spread error, and I'm not going to cover that up by any means in the review that's coming out. That they're going to have to work to fix with every single model. But once that research is done, you've seen the unboxings. It's as simple as taking off the box cover and unboxing it in front of folks. I realized, I don't know, a couple years ago that unboxing was probably something people wanted to see. I saw it being done on cell phone reviews and other YouTube videos for other products, and I said, I wonder if people want to see unboxings on model trains, and a lot of people want to see what they're getting out of the box, or some people just want that feeling of, I can't really afford this right now, but I'd like to see what the experience is like, and kind of have it at home on video. But once it's unboxed, I do the unboxing, and I go over the paperwork real quickly, but it's important to show people what all they're getting in the box, because unboxing itself is kind of boring. And then the model itself, which in this case is that NMRA locomotive, SD40-2. And I promise you I won't talk too long, but first thing I do is I unbox it for the first time on the video. That kind of takes out any assertions that I've played with the locomotive and fixed a lot of problems and all this stuff, and that me and the manufacturers are having cigars and cognac up on the hill in the mansion. All that assertion is kind of out the door because it's an unboxing for the first time when I actually do it on film. Now, there's been occasions where I mess up a word or something, and I just go with it because I'm not reboxing the item because I messed up a word or whatever. But this is out of the box actually for the second time because I played with it earlier. I got this from Overland Hobbies in Muncie, Indiana, when I was visiting my home. The guy that runs Overland Brass, he now has a plastic hobby shop online, and I pre-order things from him from time to time, and this was one of those items. But I played with this before, and obviously once I get out of the box, I'll cut the camera and start playing around with the locomotive, seeing if there's anything that I notice. Like on this locomotive, one thing I noticed was that the windows were almost impossible to get out. Like this side has the window out, but this side has them wedged into their sides, and I took tweezers and I just couldn't get the window to de-wedge, to slide. So it's just kind of an open window for sure on this one. And then I actually took off some paint trying to do that as well. I took a toothpick, just different things trying to get that window to de-wedge, and I couldn't really do it. But a lot of the stuff, because I don't want to sound like I'm the biggest guy in the world on YouTube or whatever, but there's so many people that watch the videos now that a lot of the stuff is subjective. So I go over the details, what's on the model, what the manufacturer's saying is on the model. We talk about handrails a lot on Athearns, being fragile, popping out of stanchions, the stanchions popping out of the holes. But sometimes, you can really nitpick a model to death, and I really don't have time for that. I'm trying to keep my videos short. That's another suggestion I would give people that are doing reviews. The viewer attention span is just so short that if your video is multi-part or 20 minutes long, then you're going too long. And I've done it before, but I'm kind of working to get that better. And then obviously we go over the details. I try to give a 360, 180 degree view. 360 degree view all the way around, and then up top. And sometimes I don't really show the bottom that much, but once all that's done, I basically run the locomotive. I'll turn the sound off and run the locomotive so you can hear what the sound is like, the actual motor noise is like, go through some sound features, and that's about it. And then everybody thinks that some people think that my video editing takes up a lot of time, but it's pretty concise because I just use Windows Movie Maker and I throw it together as quick as possible. I don't have a lot of time on my hands, being a 40-hour plus a week day job sometimes, dad to 2 kids, wife wants attention, kids want attention, work wants attention. So I just kind of edit it really quickly and I go about my business and put it on. But there's nothing I'm doing special, in my opinion, on reviews. I think the only reason I got to where I'm at in terms of the views and subscribers is because I started doing reviews so early on YouTube. Like 2009, as soon as I started doing model railroading, I noticed there wasn't any reviews, or there may have been a few, I don't know. But so I kind of started earlier, and that caught momentum, I think. And then the how-to series caught momentum, but that's the only reason I think I'm kind of, big in terms of views or subscribers or whatever, but nothing really special that I do by any means. Anybody could do it, and like I said, I encourage everybody to do so. But that's basically the review process in a nutshell, without boring you to death any longer. So I don't know, dude, if we want to go into questions, or if people want more information on reviews, but I'm open to questions or whatever you guys have. And also, I will emphasize, you don't have to play politics with me. If you've got a hard-hitting question, let me know, and I will answer it honestly, truthfully, and on the spot. So go for it.
Dwight Krisman has a question. I hope I got his last name right. James, enjoyed your videos. Question: Lock Sound, TCS, Digitrax, QSI, or Tsunami?
Right now, I would have to go with overall big picture lock sound or loc sound. TCS though is really hitting it hard. The only thing they're missing, I noticed, is a E-bell on some of their diesel, or I think their TCS Wild Diesel. But one of my locomotives here that I just got back, a custom Southern 630 in Bachman. I had a TCS Wild Steam, and that sound is crazy good. So TCS is coming up quickly, but I'd have to still go with Loke Sound overall right now as it sits. But TCS within a short period will probably catch up to them if they don't watch it.
Do you get when you do a review? Do you get any kind of a response out of any of the manufacturers on the reviews?
Yeah, I get. I've had manufacturers ask me what I'm getting requested for reviews and um, run items based on that. I've had manufacturers tell me that they've taken some of my highest viewed reviews and rerun locomotives based on that. And they kind of ask me what are people talking about, or because I actually go. One of the things I like to do is actually go video the manufacturer's facilities or whatever. Me and Bob went to Intermountain. I went to MTH last year. I've been to Athern. I'll go and set up in their studio and see what kind of products they have at their manufacturer headquarters or whatever you want to call it to show people what's coming out next in kind of an isolated environment versus the train show where it's mumbling people in the background and all that crowd noise and stuff. Some guy with a 350-pound stomach just kind of goes in front of your shot or whatever. So I like to get in that isolated studio environment and show people what the manufacturers have. But it's kind of funny because I'm out here on my own, but I've had manufacturers ask me about other manufacturers, and I'm like, listen, I'm staying out of that. Or, hey, do you know what they're doing or what they're releasing and all that stuff. But they ask for quite a bit of input, actually. So
you may have said this in the thing in your opening statements, but when you're first opening up a box, you go through the paperwork, the instructions, the exploded view and all that. When you're going to make a video on a review, what is the first things that you're actually looking for? I know that when you pull them out of the box, you're looking for like broken parts. Normally that would be like a packaging problem and stuff like that, right? So when you're opening up a box to do a review, what's the first thing that you're actually looking for?
It is broken parts, but just because it's a model that I've got money or time invested in, and I obviously don't want it broke. But you're right, it's a packaging thing. Like on the Athern, the Alaska Railroad SD70 review, like a window sunshade went flying off, and I'm like, well, plugs right back in or whatever. But after I'm past that, I'm just kind of overlooking the detail and seeing whether it wows me or not. And some people think I run off some sort of a script, but it's all impromptu. I've always been kind of an impromptu speaker. Like even for work engagement stuff, I don't write anything down except for data that I have to remember. So I just kind of look at it and I'm like, wow, this is impressive, or oh, the handrails are real thin, or I just start looking over the detail is really what gets me, because I know what to expect from all the manufacturers now. I know that Athern's going to have plastic handrails and incandescent bulbs. I know MTH is going to be weighty locomotives with their remote couplers and things like that. So it's kind of nothing really surprises me much anymore. But when it does, I spurt it out on the video.
What manufacturers do you think have the best packaging when it comes to packaging their locomotives, or even rolling stock? It don't matter. I mean, anything to do with the trains themselves.
I've noticed they've started kind of copying each other. I see a lot of them in the Athern. I don't know if Athern was first or who was first, but the bracing like this with the clear plastic sleeve. I've seen a lot of that. Even MTH recently switched to that. So they're all on the same playing field, I think, in terms of or most of them are on the same playing field in terms of locomotives and rolling stock now. Uh, even this American Limited that just came out. I mean, this piece of rolling stock. This is the first time this company has produced stuff in a while. But you've got the same thing. You've got the clear outer sleeve here, and you've got that bracing. Now, the only difference between this and the Athearn one is they don't put styrofoam in it there, but they use that clear plastic, that thin plastic inside to keep the model from getting brushed up against the hard plastic, and they're all kind of following each other now, mostly. I'm sure there's something I'm missing, but I think for the most part they're following each other now.
With your experience that you've been doing these reviews, do you think that a lot of the manufacturers do shortcuts, or do you think that they kind of got a tidbit on other manufacturers? Let's say like wheel sets and couplers. I mean, do you think they cut corners when it comes to that kind of stuff?
Yes, absolutely. They absolutely cut corners because the costs in China are rising. They're a business. As much as I'd like to tell you that the modeler is the number one priority, it can't be in any of these businesses. I mean, realistically, it can't be for any of these businesses to be the number one priority, because they're a business and they have to survive, if they want to feed their families or continue to have that business. So number one priority for any company, in my opinion, is making money. I could be wrong, but I think they have to make money to survive. And then they start looking at what the modeler wants, how to improve, how to compete with the other companies, and how to move on and succeed, but strike the balance. You saw MTH come out with the SD70 I believe was their first HO scale diesel, and they're like vastly improving on their locomotives now with their ES44s. So it's like an evolution process too for a company. So some companies they're kind of like us growing up from kids to adults. They're learning and adapting as the company grows in age and stuff. MTH is pretty young in terms of HO scale stuff, but yeah, it's a learning process for them. But I still say money's got to be number one. So.
Well, I think it could be. I think it could be too, James. Is when you say money thing, I think that if they put all the I don't know. I think that they could have, let's say Athearn for one, if they come out with a locomotive that has some of the cheap couplers and stuff like that, but then they could probably have the ready to run. The ready to run could come out with the cheap couplers, and then if you got one of the Genesis, I think that they don't need to cut corners when it comes to like their top of the line stuff like Genesis. It should come out with the best coupler, best wheels, and etc. What do you think?
Athearn's a little unique because they own the company of the coupler they're putting on. They own McHenry, so they're gonna go with McHenry couplers, because going with like a KD is undercutting their own company, their own sub company. It's like if I own GM, or if I was a GM, like General Motors company, and I owned Firestone, I wouldn't put Goodyear tires on my car. Yeah. So I don't know. See, my whole degree, my bachelor's and master's degrees are in business. So I see the business side, and then I see the modeler side. So every time I'm like, man, I really want this. I wish they'd get their heads out of their butts. But then I think of the business side of things, and they're trying to find that happy medium. Like I was telling you before we went live, I bought a laptop that has. Bob told me not to buy it because it's a Lenovo or whatever, but it has all this electronics packed into it. It's got a real fast processor and a huge video card and all this stuff. And then they cheaped out on the monitor and the webcam. So I'm using an external webcam. So because they cheaped out on they cut corners somewhere to still make profit, yet make it an appealing item. So I don't know. It's a mixed bag, but I do agree with you on the Genesis. They should do the top-notch stuff. And McHenry couplers, I hear all the time that they're not good couplers. I haven't had any experience with them, but I just pulled my first 90-plus unit train, 2 weeks ago. So I don't have long-term experience with coupler strength issues. So
they come off and into the garbage they go.
Which companies do you think have the worst couplers?
I'd have to say, let's see. Those McHenrys, I don't know. I just haven't had any issues. I don't even know. I think it was the McHenry coupler I had issues with. It was lifting off the other coupler because it was just weak. So I would probably go with McHenry's, probably the ones I've experienced that are not that great. But again, I haven't pulled really long trains until a couple weeks ago, so I don't have the experience of somebody pulling, prototypical length trains up a helix or something like that. I'm not there yet.
JD's got a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, James.
How's it going?
One comment on the couplers. I assume, first of all, companies could produce a better coupler. McHenry could produce a higher-end coupler, and then Athearn could leverage that higher-end coupler on the higher-end models and charge a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I don't think they want to do that from a business perspective.
No, probably not.
My question was, what company do you think is the most up-and-coming company, the small companies out there in this field? Where should we focus our attention to, you think, are quality-wise, value-wise, product-wise?
Let's see, small companies, could you give me rattle off a few so I can know what I'm dealing with?
I don't know. Some of them companies are not necessarily small, but, for example, Fox Valley.
Oh, yeah.
I bought a bunch of their coaches, for example.
Yeah.
Rapido.
Rapido is very detailed, very,
And there's kind of an up-and-comer and kind of a small one, so you'd have to put that one on your list of considerations for this boat.
For Rapido, so let's look at those two you mentioned. Rapido, I think they're competing with better than any company out there. I mean, in terms of detail, they've got crazy good detail. I just ordered a Napa Valley FPA4. It's got the brake chain detail. You don't see that much on locomotives from manufacturers. The FP40 I reviewed a few weeks ago had I don't know if they call it well lighting or that, the truck lighting on the locomotive. So they're going to crazy amounts of detail, and then they pair it up with Loke Sound. So they've got detail, they've got weight, and they've got great sound. So they're top notch in my opinion. Fox Valley, I don't know much about them. I did look at their they just released GP60.
I've not bought any engines from them. I bought coaches.
Yeah, their GP60 didn't impress me. It was kind of plain. I didn't review it because I didn't need any. I didn't have any purpose buying any. They didn't have any UP out, which is I'm mainly UP modeler. So I didn't buy any, but it didn't impress me much. If I would have reviewed it, it would have been kind of a meh review the whole time. Just okay detail, okay operation, kind of noisy, just from what I had seen.
And so I guess the question really is, do you see any other companies out there that you're aware of that are up and coming, saying, hey guys, you should pay attention to these?
For rolling stock, I still think American Limited is doing some pretty good stuff. A little pricey, but with the discounts, you're still in about the $30 to $40 range on the cars. Cato is doing good. I think Walther's mainline. Walther's is obviously a huge company, but they've got their mainline brand, which is good. Tangent, there's one. Tangent's real good. Tangent's a small company, and their stuff is top-notch detail, but it's all rolling stock. So they're doing great stuff. But yeah, I can't really think of any that's like separated from the pack right now.
Which locomotive, what companies with their locomotives do you find to be the least, how would you say it, mechanically? Which ones do you think are the worst? Which are the best?
This is kind of where I'm screwed because I've spent so much time building layouts that I haven't had time to run much. So I've sent an Athearn locomotive back. I've sent an MTH locomotive back. I've sent Broadway Limited steam locomotive back. So again, I don't know what separates. I hear that there's a few more problems with like Broadway Limited steam locomotives mechanically, but I'm not sure. I think just barely I've had more Broadway Limited returns than other companies, but that's literally 2 locomotives out of hundreds. I mean, over 100, and then versus the other companies where it's probably 1 apiece. So I just haven't had very many returns, but a lot of that is because my engines don't have that much runtime. I'm either working or building a layout or moving, and then once I had about from mid 2011 till mid 2014 to really run locomotives, and I was deployed for or almost a year of that time, so I didn't really have much time to really run them out. But I hear also from the Chicago Museum of Science that Cato's will run for forever, so that's good to hear, I guess.
James, I got another question for you. I know you're building a layout now, your second layout, you moved and you got a new place, so your concentration is mainly on that. So as modelers, our dollars are limited. Do you budget, like when you're doing reviews, are you budgeting and buying models that are specifically for your layout, or are you buying them and budgeting specifically for reviews? How do you do that?
Well, when I first started, I would buy whatever I was buying to review. So if I wanted it for me, that's the only thing that was getting reviewed. Then as the channel started catching on, I started getting review requests to where it was peaking out like, I don't know, just dozens of requests, a week or whatever. So I started keeping kind of a log to see which requests were the most. I'd search my email, and then I would purchase those items and then sell them on eBay after I was done with them if it wasn't something up my alley. Or if it wasn't something up my alley but it really caught my eye, I'd throw it on the shelf. Now what I do is a kind of a mixture. I look at whatever item it is that's highly requested. I mix that with whatever item I'm buying for my layout, and those are the way the reviews are purchased. And then the actual budgeting part is, some of you guys are probably aware of AdSense, the videos that play on the reviews and all the videos on YouTube. If it gets significant enough, it produces a check, and then I use that for the reviews. And then sometimes, if it's like an expensive item and I've got contacts in the manufacturers, I'll ask them if I can borrow the item, and sometimes they say yes, and then they're like, oh, just keep it after the review or whatever. But that's probably about 25 to 30% of the overall reviews I've done lately. I think out of the last time I counted that, I'd done the last 40 reviews. There was 8 of them that had been loaned or given to me by manufacturers. I just recently shipped Athearn a box back of stuff that they let me borrow to review because I didn't feel like buying it. And some people say that skews my reviews, but you look back past 5 years and I haven't really changed much. So,
Are you doing all scales or just HO?
I do mostly HO, but I get review requests for all scales. So then if it peaks on a certain item in a certain scale, then I'll review that. In scale, I get a lot of requests because there hasn't been much of a front runner in in-scale reviews. I'm hoping that Bob Olson I've been trying to plug his channel so he can take over in-scale reviews, but I'll do them on occasion. And then G-scale on occasion, because I actually got into G-scale a little bit. I was going to make a little garden railroad out under my deck. So people will request certain items. I try to stay away from O-scale mainly because there's a guy named Eric Siegel that does a great job on O-scale reviews. So if people request something, I say, hey, can you go over to Eric and request from him, because I don't want to step on his toes. He's got as many views and subscribers as I do, and you know, I think he has like a deal with his local dealer or something to get, you know, reviews done, because those things are even more expensive. But you know, it's kind of based on demand basically. But I try not to go too crazy. I'm not going to do S or Z or very little G. You know, it's you know, and some people's stories, they play into it too. You know, so a guy's telling me he can't afford an engine, or he can only afford one engine, and he doesn't know if it's good or not. And it's going to motivate me a little more to do a review than just saying, hey, can you do a review on this item? So.
Do you get you request for reviews?
You broke up a bit. I couldn't hear you.
Do you get a lot of requests for reviews?
Yeah, at one time it was getting crazy. I don't know about requests, but in general, in my Gmail account, which is tied into my YouTube, you go to the About page and it's got 4 business inquiries or whatever. That's how a lot of people contact me, or through Facebook. At one time I got bored at work and I sat through and counted the messages from the day, and whether it was a Facebook message, a Gmail message, or a YouTube message, I was getting 100 messages of different sorts, like in that day. So it was getting insane, and it wasn't all review requests. It was, you know, a mixture of things. I get people asking me to send them stuff because they've had a, you know, bad financial time or whatever. I get people asking for reviews. I get people asking for advice. I get people asking me if I know how to do certain things. I get people asking me where they can buy certain things. This one guy was, you know, he was emailing me pretty regularly about where to find this light up sign, this Union Pacific light up sign. So I was trying to hunt that down for him, because I've got like a directory of almost every dealer in the country, every hobby shop in the country I'd done one time out of boredom. So I kind of try to hunt down items for people and help them there too. So yeah, I get maybe 20 requests a week is my guess.
Yeah, you need to do a review on turntables.
Yeah, I did one on the Walters 130 foot. Well, it was kind of a how-to install, but yeah, I should probably do the review on the Walters turntable I have over there.
Yeah, I remember that, but they have about 6 different companies making motorized turntables now for DCC.
Oh,
Trying to figure out what's the best one to do.
yeah, that's hard because, you know, in a case like that, it costs a lot of money, and takes a lot of time. I'd like have to do a diorama for each one or something to kind of demonstrate them. But yeah, that one's a beast because they're big. But you know, I'll try to take a look at that, or maybe just one at a time.
When you've done reviews, what do you prefer? Some of the manufacturers, do they all use the same lighting, etc., when it comes to lights?
No, you got Athearn with the incandescents. A lot of people have switched to LEDs. I think almost all others have switched to LEDs. I'm kind of looking at my inventory to remember all the manufacturers, but you know, the LED incandescent debate rages on. I think there's a poll on Atlas Rescue Forum right now showing pretty much 2-to-1. I think people prefer the LEDs, but me, I don't like LEDs if they're blue. They need to be golden white. They need to look realistic. They need to have that bulb appearance, and it's really hard for them to do that. So that's why I've never really thrown Athearn under the bus for going from incandescents, or not going to LEDs. But I don't like blue LEDs. Like let's see, Broadway Limited's first AC 6000. I mean, they were just really blue LEDs, and I'm not a fan of those. I love the color blue, but not on a locomotive LED.
Well, that's really not prototypical neither if it's a blue, right? I mean, I've never seen a blue locomotive light.
Well, it is prototypical if you have a Smurf's butt right up against the lens, but other than that, no.
That's a good one.
Go with a highlighter on the lens.
Yeah.
So what do we have to do to get Athearn to start at least putting better quality bulbs in there? I know back to the coupler discussion, but you know every other bulb in the world except theirs lasts more than a week.
I don't know. I've asked them a couple of years ago when I went up to their store, or not their store, their headquarters building, or whatever you call it. I asked them, you know, I said, you should at least look at Miniatronics incandescents or something. And they just kind of gave me the stare that they've heard that 1,000 times. So I think they're exploring options, but I don't know how long it'll be before they change. I know they did say that if they do change to LEDs, it was going to require, like, it wouldn't just fit in the hole just like incandescents do. They're going to have to do some sort of, you know, I don't know if it's a retooling. I'm not up on all the details, but they're going to have to do some modifications if they switch to LEDs. And
Yeah, I don't even know that they need to switch to LEDs. They just need a better quality incandescent that'll last a little bit.
well, that was my solution. I said go to a Miniatronics incandescent bulb, something that lasts. But again, just indicative of the fact that I haven't had much time to run. I haven't had a single Athearn bulb go out on me because I haven't had time to run. I almost thought about doing a video where I put it on the track and just timed how long before the incandescent burn out, you know, and kind of had low quality video to go back and find how long it went before burning out, but I never got around to that yet.
Yeah, I don't know if it would burn out just sitting there on, but it's the cycling on and off. You know, you can find a way to cycle it on and off. I bet it doesn't take long at all.
Yeah.
I run mine a lot, and they go out real quick.
Yeah, it's a pain. And then I've never replaced a bulb, so I hear that's not easy, especially the ditch lights. And I've got jittery hands, so I would have to send that off or something.
I just go to LEDs if I end up having to replace them.
Yeah, I probably would too. I've had some custom, the old Tower 55, the old Tower 55 units. I've had them custom switched to LEDs, but I also had a whole bunch of other stuff done to them, like had sound added when I first got in the hobby and stuff like that. When Lagar Technologies in San Antonio was still in business, they did that stuff for me.
I was the one who had bad experience with it.
Yeah.
I like when you did the review on Bachmann, and it was a cheap Bachmann, of course, and a Tyco's. Those are good.
That was Bob's Tyco.
But, you know, going back to what you were talking about earlier with Athearn and things, you really have to give them credit. While their couplers may be cheap, look at what they've done. Look at a blue box compared to an RTR right now. Yeah, maybe they don't run a whole lot better, but look at the shell and the details and the prototypical accuracy they're putting on those. Bachmann hasn't done that, you know.
No.
They are, while they're looking at a profit, they are looking at the customer because they are answering our demands by doing those kind of things, you know.
Oh, yeah, profit is just a part of the equation, but I think it's got to be the biggest part, or most of the part for most manufacturers. But yeah, they're like this SD40-2. It's ready to roll, but it has, you know, silver-tipped MU hoses. So they're even adding details to these ready-to-roll locomotives that. You know, they were leading the pack, and they still are in a lot of terms of detail. But then you got the folks that they get mad because they want more of the detail, but then the detail starts breaking because it's so intricate. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword at the same time.
Now, speaking of Bachmann, have you checked out those new Easy Make couplers they came out with, and what do you think of them?
No, there's been a couple of models I think that have them on there. I haven't had any problems with them. They're oversized, so you don't have the problems you have with the McHenry of kind of lifting up off of each other. But again, I haven't pulled any real long trains with them, so I don't know in terms of strength how they hold up to long trains.
How do they mate with the rest of them?
They seem to mate fine, except for you don't want to mate them with those new scale couplers. What are they called? Sargent. You don't want to do that. That won't work. Those Sargent couplers are kind of meant for each other only, so are pretty close to each other. I think they do fine with KDs, but they're oversized enough that they probably mess with the Sargents, I think.
When you first started doing your reviews, did you get any disappointing letters from the companies?
No. Let's see. When I first, let's see. I think Athearn was a little upset. At the time, one of the representatives talked to me at a train show and, said, you got to see our end of things and et cetera, et cetera. But I really didn't. I wasn't too hard on them. Yeah, I didn't really get much negative stuff from the companies. I got the people that watched is where a lot of the negativity came from right off the bat, because I was spending just a ridiculous amount of money on trains. The first 4 years was like $50,000 in trains, because I'd never found a hobby that I really got into. I didn't have any kids. Me and my wife both had good paying jobs. We weren't forking out a lot of money in bills or anything, so I just went berserko and I started chasing down all the stuff from the past, several years that had been produced that I was not a part of the hobby. So there was a lot of people thinking that right out the gate, I was just getting free stuff because I was the only person reviewing it, and I was buying all this stuff. But that really didn't start till about a year or two after the reviews, so not a whole lot of criticism from the companies. I've had them ask, if I open an item and it's completely destroyed, consider the fact that it'd been through all the processes and stuff like that. And I tell people that, it's a little lady in China making it, and then shipped over on a container ship, and then trucked to the manufacturer, and then put to a UPS or USPS guy or FedEx guy, and then it goes to us, and all those steps, stuff breaks sometimes. But yeah, not too much, other than, just they want a little bit of understanding on certain X factors that they can't control.
But I hope that understanding is not just on the quality side, because ultimately what matters is the modelers. They're the one forking the money over. Companies wouldn't exist without them, right? It's a symbiote relationship.
Yeah, like I said, and I tell the companies this all the time, like, I don't have 20,000 companies watching my videos. I have 20,000 modelers watching my videos in terms of the subscribers or whatever. So if there's a mass problem, then they're going to hear about it. I'm not going to cover it up. If you go over to MB Klein's YouTube page and you look at their review on the SD60M, they don't mention the fact that Athearn completely dropped the ball and forgot to put on windshield wipers and lift rings on their locomotives. Why? Because they're a hobby shop and they're trying to sell trains, and they're trying to pull one over on the manufacturer. I mean, not on the manufacturer, on the modeler. But when you see my SD60M review here in a few weeks, it's probably the first thing that's going to come out of my mouth. And I haven't unboxed the two locomotives yet, but I already know from the internet chatter that every locomotive produced by Athearn that's an SD60M does not have windshield wipers or lift rings. So I already know that going into it. So I'm not going to act like I'm surprised. I'm already going to be aware of it, but I'm not going to hide it from the modeler either. So the modeler is my #1 priority. So if it's a massive problem like that Athearn 60M problem, I'm not going to beat around the bush. But when it comes to opinion-based stuff, like, oh, this locomotive has LEDs, or this locomotive has incandescents, or, Athearn's handrails are too thin, or Athearn handrails are prototypically thin, that stuff I leave to everybody, because there's 20,000 different people with their opinions out there. So, I used to state my opinions very, very candidly, but I got so much email about, well, you need to see this side. I like the fact that the the handrails are thin, or I like the incandescent bulbs, or I like the LED, blue LEDs, or whatever. I just got tired of it. So here's the model. If something's glaringly wrong that's a disservice to the modeler, I'll tell you about it. But if it's one of those opinion-based things, you know, I'm just going to let it go.
You think Athearn will ever fix those problems?
The bulb?
No, the wipers.
Oh yeah, and I'll say that in the review too, because you know you've got to be fair to everybody in the process, and they're trying to fix it, but they've got two options. You can either get a shell, entire new shell, which means you're going to have to put in those, you know, incandescent bulbs. You're going to have to mount those into the new shell probably, unless those are connected. I don't know. Or they'll give you the parts and a drill kit to do it. Those are the two options. In a perfect world, they would, and you know, they're going to allow returns under the manufacturer or under the dealers, I'm sure, within the dealer's specified return period. But in a perfect world, they'd recall them all, but they've already spent too much money on them, so they're just going to put out a fix for it. And then what I'll hope for is that they, you know, I was going to buy a few of those, but now in the situation they're in, I'm just going to hope for a rerun where they get it right, because I don't have the technical expertise to, you know, replace a shell if I've got to deal with incandescent bulb mounting and, you know, all that crap that goes along with replacing the shell. I don't know how easy or hard it'll be. I'm not sure. But if it's easy, I'll do it. But if it's not, I'm not going to waste the time.
James, I want to kind of go back to your point of, you know, you mentioned like the reviews from MB Klein and so forth. I mean, us as modelers have to be cognizant of the fact they're a business. They're not going to be necessarily 100% objective.
Right.
But they're going to tell you only the positives of the model, right? Because their ultimate goals, I don't care if it's MB Klein or anybody else, you know. So when I look at reviews from somebody, a store or a hobby shop, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because their ultimate goal is to sell and market it to you.
Right.
You know, and that's where people like yourselves as independent reviewers come into play on YouTube. That's an important service to the modeling community.
Yeah, I get that. I just hope that, you know, it's not necessarily a negative thing that a manufacturer screwed up, because if you look at all the modelers, I mean, all the models out there, everything's missing something or whatever. But from MB Klein on that review, because, you know, I look at reviews just like you guys do. And again, I still encourage everybody to do them, but it wouldn't have been a negative thing to say Athearn, you know, did not put these details on. Once you make your purchase, please contact Athearn or parts at athearntrains.com or whatever the website is to get this fixed. You know, that's not, you know, crapping all over a model, really. It's just, you know, a service to your customers. So personally, I just kind of took away from that they were, you know, they either thought the viewers or their customers were not quick enough to pick up on that, or they were trying to pull one over on them, and I didn't take it as a positive light as a reviewer myself. But you know,
Are the other hobby shops that are doing reviews on these things saying that too, or?
Well, really, the only hobby shop I've seen doing reviews is MB Klein. In DCC Train, do reviews on the Intermountain SD40-2, I think it was, and they were pretty tough on the model. DCC Train was. If you go look at the Intermountain, I think it's SD40-2 review, or just search that in YouTube, you'll find DCC Train. Rob Gruber did a review on it, and he was candidly honest that the prototypical details weren't there in certain occasions and cases. You know, you've got to be careful. Like I said, my degrees are in business. You don't want to tell your customers that they're stupid and you're going to pull one over on them. That's the last thing you want to do, and that's kind of the inclination I got from that MB Klein review. So.
Yeah, lots of luck trying to get parts out of Athearn, though.
Yeah,
we tried once, and they told us that they make so many parts for so many engines that they're going to box and sell. About the only thing they run extra on are like handrails, stuff that breaks easy.
Well, this is a mass problem with every model produced having this issue. So I think they'll get to it. I don't know how fast. I don't think it'll be a quick process, but I think they will ship the parts from the people that requested them eventually. But even for the factory to make all those shells is probably going to take time, like probably a crazy amount of time. This hobby is nothing fast, that's for sure.
Well, I think right now will be a good time to go ahead and announce our sponsors or whatever. Just to remind everybody that YouTube Model Builders is the presenter of all these presentations and live shows and the Emag. I've got JD on here. If JD wants to step in and talk a little bit about the July issue of the Emag, you're more than welcome to, JD.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, dude. The July issue is sort of an issue that I've been planning for quite some time in terms of topic and theme. All the Emags have been theme-specific or thematic. The July issue is focused on the young modeler, modelers that are 18 and under. And we're going to explore the entry to the hobby, the path that how kids get there, whether it's Thomas or the Lionel trains like in the old days, what that means, what the differentials are. What are some of the barriers to entry? Is it cost? Is it complexity? Is it, are parents supporting them? What is the interest? What are the challenges that the young modelers see? How they use social media to get around? Lack of advertisements by the manufacturers, like in the old days. So how does that impact the hobby, and where is the hobby going with the young modelers? And the gray gap. There's a generational gap in the hobby, and the interaction between the adults and the young modelers, as well as some couple of articles on some special needs kids, particularly one with Asperger's syndrome, whose life changed with model railroading. And we'll get to explore some of those concepts in this issue. So I hope you guys take a look for that.
Thank you very much, JD.
Thank you.
And then I want to make sure that everybody knows all the hangouts that are every Tuesday nights. There's 4 of us that are doing those. Plus, I do want to put a shout out to Johnny Reb from Southeast Rails. He does the Thursday night hangouts. It's a general hangout. That starts at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. It's just a general hangout. Basically, everything is focused on anything to do with model railroading. Sometimes they'll pick a certain topic to talk about that night and stick with that for the 2 hours or whatever. The schedule for all the hangouts is on the YouTubeModelBuilders.com as well. Then I want to let everybody know about the Big Build show that's coming up, contest. Eric from imrro.com, he's is the host of the contest, of the Big Build contest. You can go to the YouTube Model Builders to sign up for that. You can go to Eric's YouTube channel, and he's got a couple videos on explaining the contest rules, how to get involved into the Big Build contest. I think there's quite a few that have signed up for it right now. Plus the live show that's every month. I think the next one is the 16th of July. I will be on that show. Big Bill is stepping out for that show. He's got some, I don't know, going on vacation or something like that. So Barry and I will be running that show for that one there. So there's a lot of good stuff going on when it comes to the YouTube Model Builders. So if you guys want to come in and watch those shows, there is a Q&A that you can, just like these presentations, and they're really good. So we'll get back to our show here. So James, when it comes to your reviews, have you thought about doing reviews on other things when it comes to model builder, the hobby, like structures, kits, anything like that?
I do. You'll see with this new how to build a layout series that I spend a lot more time reviewing scenery items. A lot of scenery items from woodland scenics and Walder's scenery items that I've got ready for this layout. Structures, if they're already assembled, I'll review them, but me assembling structures doesn't work out so well with mostly time and patience. I put my wife to work on doing my structures a lot of the time. She's building 2 MTH bridges for this layout where I'm about to tear out some foam and make a bridge section. But I've done a couple structures, and a little bit of patience mixed with lack of skill just kind of annoys me.
Yeah.
If a guy's on a budget, and I'm talking 150, you're under $150, what manufacturer would you recommend for engines with diesels?
DCC with sound or DCC?
No, just DCC.
I would recommend Intermountain. I think their MSRP is about $199, but you can get it around $149 with your discounts around your retailers. Because they're both DC and DCC locomotives. Even though their DC version is DCC, it's DCC equipped. It's a dual mode decoder, so you can run DCC with that, and they're real good on detail. They are also budget friendly, under 150 by the time you figure your discounts in. And then I think one product that's coming up that's going to be good, at least in my opinion, for probably $20 under 150, probably 130 or 140 with sound, is going to be this new Walther's mainline brand of locomotive, like the SD70 ACEs they're going to produce. I haven't seen them yet, but everything looks promising. But yeah, those are probably the two I'd go with for under 150 with DCC.
What sound decoder are the Walther's mainlines going to be using?
They're going to be Tsunami. They're going to be soundtracks. I don't know if I think they're going to be that value sound in soundtracks. Bachmann has got the same thing. It's got that value sound. It's basically a Tsunami decoder, but it's missing like functions, higher numbered functions. So it only has like a handful of functions to it, and limited CV programming capability. So it's basically a limited decoder, but you're still getting the Tsunami sound, or the soundtrack sound anyway. It sounds pretty much like a full-out Tsunami decoder.
While you're on decoders, I don't know if you've seen a lot of there's quite a few videos out there of guys having issues. There's some threads out there too, guys having issues with decoders. I know that you don't run trains as much as a lot of the other guys, but have you gotten any, when you're doing a review, have you gotten any of the sound units? I mean, what do you think of a lot of the sound units that are out there? Have you had any sound units that had problems, wouldn't fire up, wouldn't, have any problems whatsoever?
Factory installed sound. Trying to think here. I think I had one MTH locomotive that it wouldn't fire up. It would run like a DCC locomotive, but the sound wouldn't fire up. But that wasn't right out of the box. That was about a year or so after I had it, and I sent it down to Lagar Technologies, and then they went out of business, and I never got it back. So that unit there is the only one I think I've had sound actually just not stop working on. I haven't had any come out of the box with sound not working. I think I may have a couple, but I did like a factory reset and that fixed it.
Yeah, Tsunami value sound is bell, horn, and prime mover. You can't even switch your lights.
Yeah.
just basic.
Yeah, it's very limited. I didn't know it was that limited, but it's a good point.
Do you, James? Do you like the when you get a sound, when you're doing a review on a sound unit, do you like the factory settings, or would you prefer to, I mean, sometimes when I get them, the factory settings to me are too loud. I mean, they're just not really prototypical. What do you think on a lot of that?
It depends on what you're dealing with. Like out of my recent batch of reviews, I think the Broadway Limited USRA Mikado 282 steam locomotive, its sound was too loud. Turned it down a bit, and it took out the rattle. But most of them, I kind of like my sound on the louder end, where most people want it lower. Prototypical sound is going to be pretty low, because from what I hear from some of the soundophobe friends I have out there in the hobby, the way a lot of these locomotives sound out of the box, if it was magnified to a full-blown locomotive, it would blow everybody's eardrums out or whatever. But I just kind of I like sound. And what I don't like sound is when there's too much going on a layout. If I've got like 6 locomotives, 3 in a lash up going one way and 3 in a lash up going the other way, and they, there's just too much mix of sound, or there's different decoders going on. I don't like it. But then I kind of get a warm, fuzzy feeling if I can get, 3 or 4 tsunami decoders. Like, for example, the Athearn SD70M, I got 4 sound units. I put them all on the track without changing the address, and when I fire them up, they all go together, and it's kind of like the stereo sound thing that's pretty cool too. So it's kind of a mixed bag.
Huh. Yeah. I'm one of those guys that like to fire up my layout and let diesels set their idle. And I've heard pros and cons of that, that's not really good on them to let them set their, but in the real life, there's been times I've gone down to the yard and there's a diesel sitting there idling, and it's not real loud until you get up on top of it, and then you can hear all the pressure relief valves kicking off and on, and the compressor kick on, and stuff like that, So I'm about the same way.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it being bad for locomotives to sit idling on your layout, really, other than the fact that, if you've got an incandescent bulb or something and the lights are on, you're just maybe burning time on that, or the overall voltage draw on your layout if there's a lot of them. But it's kind of like that old debate on whether you should turn off your computer every night or restart it. Turn it off every night or leave it running for indefinite amount of times, like desktop computers. Sometimes you never know.
When you do a review on rolling stock, do you like when you place an order and you're going to do a review on some rolling stock, do you spend more time on the rolling stock than you do like locomotives, or does it depend on the rolling stock? Let's say a reefer unit for instance.
Mm-hmm. Well, like you mentioned, it's dependent on the rolling stock and what all it does. Now they've got rolling stock with sound, so that takes some amount of time to show the sounds of the rolling stock, but that's pretty few and far between. Normally when I'm doing a review on the rolling stock, it's a lot more laid back than a locomotive, because I don't know as many of the part names on rolling stock. I mean, to this day, I don't know, what the heck. There's like air tanks in the rolling stock here. I don't know what the heck those are. I think they build up air pressure and hold it for the brake lines or something, but there's not a whole lot to it. you know. And just a disclaimer: this is not indicative of the country's latest developments. I don't get into politics on my channel, but the walkways and stuff like that, I just go over that stuff, and you know, I know the brake wheel and things like that, but it's really simple. I don't do too much research into it. I'll look at a couple prototype pictures like I do with the others, but it's simplified to a certain extent because there's only you know, a certain amount of stuff you can cover on rolling stock versus a locomotive where you got to do lights and sounds and things like that. So nobody got my gay joke. Okay.
You don't count the rivets then to see if they're how close they are to prototypical?
No. See, you know, some people have requested that I do that, but I don't. I have limited knowledge being in the hobby for 6 years. I've got too much stuff floating around my brain to worry about if something's a millimeter off, a centimeter off, a foot off. You know, if it's something big, you know, I'll pay attention. But when you work your way down to 1/87th scale, I just don't have. I don't take the time really. I'll look at the prototype pictures, see if anything jumps out at me, and then, you know, people say it's a cop-out sometimes, but I'm filming with the highest rated Consumer Reports camcorder available without going to a professional newscast camcorder. So people blow it up into 1080p, and if they are concerned about the brake wheel being off center from where it's supposed to be, they can go compare the prototype pictures. But to squeeze all that stuff into like a 10 minute video is very improbable once you start really nitpicking stuff and breaking things down into little, you know, little concerns on placement and stuff like that. So.
Very good. We haven't had too many questions in the Q&A tonight. We've had quite a few viewers. I figured there'd be a lot more questions when it comes to, maybe we've answered most of them, you know, from the panel asking questions and stuff like that. I've tried to ask as many as I can when it comes to reviews.
Yeah,
but,
the biggest thing, I'll talk a couple more minutes on the review thing, if you don't mind. Sorry.
Go for it.
Didn't mean to interrupt, but like I said, the biggest thing is there's nothing special about me. Like I mentioned, it was really a timing thing mixed with nobody competing with reviews at the time. So I was just kind of left alone for a while to run wild on reviews. And then, like I said, I think I caught a lot of attention because of the bulk of stuff and the amount of stuff that was rolling in. The fact that I'm a little bit articulate, you know, I'm not, you know, super articulate. There's a lot of uhs and pauses and things like that in my video, but I can edit some of that out. But nothing crazy special. I'm just showing people what I see. And when I started the reviews, it was literally through the eyes of a new guy. Just stuff that, you know, that sticks out to me. And sometimes it's wrong and sometimes it's right. But I've taken like an Athearn Genesis 60-foot Gunderson boxcar and then a Athearn Ready to Roll 60-foot Gunderson boxcar, and I was basically comparing them in one of the early reviews and saying that I didn't see the warrant, how they warranted the price difference because I couldn't really see much difference. But now that I've kind of progressed a little bit, I'm a little better at catching certain things. But there's always room to grow and a lot of crap I've got to learn. So people give me too much credit sometimes on what they think I know or what, you know, they think I have learned in this hobby. There's still a ton to learn.
Well, you mentioned Mountain to me is a good model for the 150 mark. Did you see Derek Glass's videos and all the problems he was having with Intermountain?
Intermountains, yeah, the ES44 is their most recent release. Yeah, I saw that he was having problems with their. I saw he was having problems, but I didn't see what they were. And then Intermountain themselves told me that they had weak motors, but I haven't. I've got the Gevos sitting on the shelf here, but they came in shortly after I moved, so I haven't even had a chance to really run them much to see what they're about. And since I had already reviewed the earlier versions, wasn't really pressed to review the new version because it was just the same model over again from what I knew. But I guess there's some drive problems or something. I don't know what all problems he was having.
Well, he was having an assortment of different problems of things being broken and not sounding right, or real loud sounding, and when they were running. And he sent back, I want to say it was 8 out of 12 engines, if I remember right. It's been a while since I watched his videos.
Yeah, I bought 10 of the Intermountain Norfolk Southern Heritage units all at the same time. So I don't know, and that was the first run. So I didn't have any problems, and I did run them a little bit. There's even a video of all 21 Heritage units running, like just running trains in one video. But I'm not up on what all issues he was having. But I did hear that they were like working to improve their drive system, but broken parts and stuff I haven't encountered much with Intermountain, so I don't know. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, he was having problems with like the bolts. There was a couple bolts that were missing when he took the cab off. There was bolts missing. Um, he had a lot of problems with them.
Yeah, and that's the kind of stuff that he might see more than me because I don't really pull them apart, or they just don't get a lot of runtime. So, and that's one thing somebody could fill a niche in with the reviews is, do a review after an item's ran for 10 hours of runtime or something like that, because every review I do is fresh out of the box. So the stuff that's encountered down the road, it doesn't get covered in my reviews that much. Sometimes I'll come back and do follow-up reviews, but very infrequently.
James, there's another thing too that a lot of us are really kind of looking at is doing reviews on different hobby shops and places that you order from. We've had people that have ordered stuff and came in and the units weren't running right and everything else. Called the hobby dealer. They told them, yeah, they could send it back, but they were going to charge them a restocking fee. So, which means his problem's going to wind up back on a shelf for somebody else.
So, it's funny you mentioned restocking fees because I just looked into this. I did a video on Train World. I had ordered some items on Train World's website, went through the whole process, and was trying to show people how to use their coupon codes to save money off whatever price they already have. And somebody had complained about Train World's restocking fee. So I went and looked at all the restocking fees, and almost all of them are 15% or so. Where they shouldn't be doing restocking fees is if you have an actual problem. So if you call a hobby shop up and say, I don't want this item anymore because my wife is mad that I bought it, that should warrant a restocking fee. But if an item's broken, that should not warrant a restocking fee. So any dealer that is charging a restocking fee off of a broken item is not doing right by restocking fee rules in general. If they've got their own rules for that, then and restocking fees include broken items, then that's kind of a foul. I would probably move away from them and try to find somebody that's not charging restocking fees for broken items. But I've returned items to Overland Hobbies. I've actually done videos on Train World, Overland Hobbies, MB Klein, DCC Train, and Lagar Technologies in Texas when they were in existence. And I've shipped stuff back to a few of those, and I haven't had any issue with restocking fees. So I don't know where people are getting messed over on that. But I would take a stand, and I would even encourage people to dispute it with their card folks, the Visa, American Express, whatever card folks. If that's happening, that's a foul.
Yeah, it's Train World we were talking about. So
Yeah,
They,
train
uh,
world.
the
And I,
broken item we found out was resold. So, I don't think that's very couth of the people to do things like that. They should have been sent back to the manufacturer.
yeah, and that's a foul. I left Train World. I actually, if you look at my most recent video, it's visiting Train World in Brooklyn. Like I was in New York for vacation. I wanted to go visit them, and I wanted to go do some stuff with my cousin and go to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And the owners, I talked to them. I sat down and talked to them for a while, and they got a lot of folks that work there that do stuff without the owner's knowledge of it. The one of the owners, there's two stores. There's a Long Island store, Long Island, New York, and there's one in Brooklyn. And the guy that runs the whole thing is in one store a lot of the times when the other store is handling the shipping part, or vice versa. And he's not aware of some of the stuff that's going on. And I would just, if it gets bad, I would encourage whoever's seeing this video, if they have issues, let me know, because I can get a hold of some of those guys. But it's, I don't know. I think the squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of saying goes with that. Should it have to? No. But the larger of a dealer you're dealing with, there's going to be all those X factors with people. So if I was just a modeler that didn't have access to the guy that runs Train World, or couldn't email him, I would just start raising hell until I got an answer. And I would, I'd say, who's your boss? Who's your boss? And I've done that with other items and other products. Um,
Yeah,
so
it's just not good business.
no, it's not. There shouldn't be restocking fees for broken items. And I can ask them about that the next time I email them to make sure that that's not their policy. And if it is, I'd tell them, just like they could watch this video here, tell them that that's a bad policy to have if that's the case. But from what I understand, restocking fees are for, I couldn't afford this, or my wife didn't like it and didn't want me to have it, or whatever. So now there's people that, like I said, we've talked about both sides of the coin. You also have people that'll go, snap off an antenna so that they can return it because they can't afford it and stuff like that. So I have heard of them saying that, if there's a person that's been known to return a lot of items, then they start, showing up on their radar a little bit, and they're like, you've returned X amount of, 70% of the items you've bought in the last year or something. Then they might start sticking that restocking fee to them. But I don't have an answer for you other than they shouldn't be doing that. That's not the purpose of restocking fees, or any company, whether you go buy something at Walmart, if you return it broke, you get your full refund. You don't get a restocking fee.
I'm not one to order a lot of stuff online. I like to go into a hobby store and look at it, But I've ordered quite a bit of stuff from Train World, and I've never had any issues with them. And the last time I ordered some turnouts, and I ordered 4 turnouts, 2 of the set, like.
I think we lost a dude there for.
I think you froze up.
Yep.
Well, that's like those the.
But I think that the turnouts that I ordered, they were all left-hand turnouts. So I called them up, and they made it all right. And I said, well, I'll throw these in the mail, and they never charged me for any about sending the other ones. Never happened to me like that before. So I don't know who I talked to on the phone, but the guy was, the customer service was, I was satisfied.
Well, we've had discussions about Train World. Train World is out of Brooklyn. When you call Train World from the website, there's a little call center area, and I actually saw it for myself when I went there. And it's out of Brooklyn, so that area of the country is very, they're very down to business. I remember I was in Jersey trying to order a sandwich from a stand, and I didn't order within 12 seconds, and I was booted out of the line. And I'm not a small guy by any means, So the guy, just didn't care that I was, upset about it or whatever. He didn't care that I was 6'1" and looking like I was going to jump over the counter. I didn't order fast enough, so I was, I was moved out of the line, and I had to go back to the beginning to get my Philly cheesesteak or whatever the heck it was. But that area of the country is very, hustle and bustle of the city. And is that an excuse for them to be hasty on the phone or anything like that? Absolutely not. And I've told Train World, listen, you're dealing with the whole country. You're probably the largest retailer in the country. So you probably want to make sure your folks understand that if they call a country boy like me from Indiana, that when you get hasty with me, I take offense to that. So it's just kind of that mentality, that New York state of mind, or whatever you want to call it. But I think they're working to improve certain things, and I've given them, like my opinions on stuff as a customer and things like that.
Yeah, I don't want to go into hobby store ethics or anything like that. That's just a complete another whole thing.
Yeah.
But
I know I bought a Bachman rotary roll like you just showed in the blue box, and out of the box, put it on my track, programmed it, and it'd get halfway around the track and it'd jump rail, and I figured it was my rail was out of alignment. Put another engine on it, never derailed, and I started looking at it, and the wheels on it were bent. So I called Bachman up and I told him that I got one of their trains to a hobby store, and the guy, before I said anything else, he says, here's my address, send it back to us, we'll replace it. And that kind of shocked me that, he didn't question me on if it was dropped or anything like that. It was just boom. And that's the first time I've ever had a hobby store do that, with no questions asked.
Yeah, I think they're quickly learning, all hobby stores are learning that in this age of social media, that if you have a bad experience, that's 10 times more likely to go online than a good experience. And so it's in their best interest to take care of the modelers. But in the business sense of things, they still have to watch out for the folks that are, repeat, their spidey senses indicate that they're trying to pull a fast one. But other than that, the everyday modeler that has issues, I think they're trying to take care of more, because if not, they're going to be taken to task on social media a lot more.
Yeah, word of mouth is your best advertisement, or your worst.
Yeah.
Well, guys, anybody in the panel have any other questions for James? Any ideas and any suggestions for upcoming reviews?
Yeah, he needs to do one on N-scale Big Boy.
I do have one question for you, James.
Yeah.
You said you do have some repeatos coming in that you are going to be doing?
Yeah, it's the FPA4 Napa Valley wine train.
Okay. Yeah. Everybody on the panel knows that I'm a big wine drinker, so I can't wait till that one there.
I wrote on the wine train. I did a video on it.
Yeah. Well, JD is too. JD is my wine drinking buddy.
Yeah.
On occasion.
Yeah, I rode that wine train. It's a pretty good tourist attraction, and you get to taste wines going to each one of the vineyards, and then you stop at the vineyard and you taste some more. By the time I got done, I was a little bit lightheaded.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I did it in 2009 or 2010, and I went with my wife and my wife's uncle. We brought him along because he likes the fancy stuff, and he's a Catholic priest, so that got interesting.
How many Hail Marys did that cost him?
Probably a few.
Because see, I went from HO to N scale. So any of your reviews that you do on N scale, I'll be looking for them.
Yeah,
I do a few.
N-scale. Somebody said N-scale Big Boy. Are they talking about the Athearn one that's about to come out?
Yep,
Okay. I'm writing that down.
I see that. Thank you.
Yeah. And then before I go, I do want to blabber off for a couple minutes on final thoughts like Jerry Springer, if you don't mind. But just let me know when you want me to do that.
Go for it.
Okay. Well, so another reason I wanted to do this with you guys was just to kind of demystify myself a little bit. Being on YouTube, as a lot of you guys have your own channels, when people are watching it, they don't know what's behind if there's a man behind the curtain or what have you. But I really appreciate everything you guys have for me, and I honestly meant it when I said that you guys, the modelers, are my main priority. So I really do look for candid questions, candid comments, without all the politics. I would much prefer people ask me questions via the message system or Facebook on my YouTube channel or YouTube Facebook page, things like that, and then stew about something I did or said or whatever. Because with so many videos being cranked out at 1 to 2 a week, I'm sure I've ticked somebody off at some point. So my biggest my biggest thing I could give you guys to take away is just I'm a regular guy just like you guys are. I work hard for the money I spend on the train stuff, and you guys are still the #1 priority in the review process. And then the videos have kind of taken off to where I feel obligated to produce videos frequently, but I still enjoy my free time as well.
Unhappy wife ain't good.
No. My wife, though, she's laid back. She's taken this thing in stride. She told me I couldn't get into trains. Well, she's the one that was kind of responsible for getting me into trains, because she told me that a steam locomotive 844 was coming, and when I went to see that is where the train bug bit. And then my cousin sent me a set, and that made it worse, and it just kind of all ended up getting me into trains. Yep.
Well, I want to thank you, James, for coming in and doing this for us, and I think everybody that's in the panel and all the viewers have enjoyed it as well, and we'll all be looking forward to your next and upcoming reviews on some of the newer stuff that's going to be coming out.
Yeah,
and,
it's an exciting future in the hobby. Just a lot of good stuff coming out. Broadway Limited is going to be pretty impressive with that stuff coming out next year with Paragon 3 and Rolling Thunder, the subwoofer stuff. That's probably personally what I look forward to the most.
What's the subwoofer thing? I had seen Paragon 3, and I've got a couple Broadway Limited Paragon 2s that are the most impressive locomotives across the board I've had, including brass equipment. I haven't seen anything as good as what their Paragon 2 is, so I'm really looking forward to Paragon 3, and a little bit in angst that I just bought 2 heavy articulateds in Paragon 2. But what's the subwoofer thing? What's that?
So they're taking the sound from the locomotive with this new Paragon 3 that's got a little chip inside that detects the location of the subwoofer, and then it mixes bass sounds and some of the deeper sounds with the sounds coming from the locomotive to make it seem more realistic in terms of that bass that you really can't get out of the speaker. That's what I understand it to be right now, but it's still not out, so when it comes out, it's going to be hard to review because it's going to be a sound thing, and people are going to have to trust me on whether they think I like the sound or not, or if the sound's good. But I'm going to encourage people to hook up subwoofers to whatever they're listening to, because that's when you can really pick up the sound difference. from the subwoofer in here whenever they produce them and I get it ordered.
So, according to my understanding, Paragon 2 was Broadway Limited partnering with Soundtracks for the decoders and sound cards. I'm sure they're heavily modified and customized Soundtracks decoders, but my understanding is they're Soundtracks. And Soundtracks has that system called surround tracks of the subwoofer audio. So it would make sense that they are incorporating that component in it. I don't know if if you get the same sense that I do that that's the direction, but layout sound has been the biggest target of my layout exploration in the last little while. I've talked to these guys at length that I'm designing the layout to incorporate layout sounds. Surround tracks has not been very well reviewed so far. I don't know if you've had a chance to play with one of those or review one of those, but the surround tracks have a problem because it depends on Digitrack's transponding, which is less than optimal. So I guess, and I get your take on this, that Paragon 3 is probably furthering the relationship with Soundtracks, incorporating surround tracks, and possibly. That's kind of a funny business.
That actually, you saying that is the first time I've heard that Paragon 2 was tied with Soundtracks. I thought, I could be wrong myself, that Paragon 2 was Broadway Limited's own system. But I could be wrong. Well, I'm not sure about that Soundtracks thing because that baffles me. But so I really couldn't chime into that, but I can chime into the fact that the layout-based sound is not what people were hoping it would be.
Absolutely.
I'm hoping that the subwoofer thing is awesome, especially since I'm probably going to be spending about $200 on it when I think pre-order it through Train World in the next couple weeks. But I don't know if it's going to be good or not. I'm a little concerned about the quality of the subwoofer because for $250 you get the receiver and the subwoofer.
Yeah, that's not a lot of money.
Yeah, and that's the MSRP. You figure you're probably going to be paying $190 or $200, but we'll see what it's like, and hopefully it's good. But that's one of those real tough things because sound is so interpretive. Some people like Paragon 2, some people say it's horrible, some people like Tsunami, some people say it's horrible. I thought TCS was just amazing, and people were complaining about that. So I don't know.
It is it is very interpretive with sound, but I think that most people respect. If you've listened to a bunch of locomotives, you'll have an idea of maybe not what sounds like the prototype per se, but that if you've listened to, and that's why some of the guys early in this call were asking you about decoders, that you've listened to surround tracks and TCS and wow sound and loc sound, and you've listened to some of them and heard the differences. And I think the big thing is in sound is that none of them are perfect, but that right now we just have to listen to the differences in the couple ones that are out there and say which is the best of those, since none of us are going to build a circuit board, I think. So
most of it is personal preference on the sounds. All others are synthesized. Wow sound is actual recordings.
Yeah, the wow sound, I think it's also like 64-bit or something, where the other ones are 16.
Yeah, most of them are 16-bit, but I know a lot of those are recorded like soundtracks. Mike Confalone from Allagash Railway fame was involved in Soundtracks recording the RS3s. And several other Alcos, but among those RS3s and PAs. And he talks at length on one of his videos about how they did that, put them under load, recorded them, etc. So I think the leading Soundtracks and other leading sound decoder manufacturers are really, really going out of their way to produce something that you could listen to a video of the prototype and compare them. And I've done that with my Paragon 2. I've watched YouTube videos and listened to my Paragon 2 of the same locomotive, and they're close, man. I mean, they're close. For me, they're close.
Yeah, I see a difference in the TCS a little more than standing out than others, but they're all coming from that one 1-inch speaker pretty much. So there's so many limitations to that, and that's why I think the manufacturers are trying to, like Broadway Limited is trying to something going outside of the speaker.
Well, I think layout technology, digital layout technology like the LCL or Open LCB standards that are coming for DCC, and surround tracks and Paragon or Cricoms, layout sound effects. But layout intelligence, layout electronics, layout sound is probably going to be the biggest thing in the next few years, or I expect it to be a big deal.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot else you can do. I mean, they've advanced about as far as they can in detail and operations, and
Yep.
I mean, you know, I envision a day when they've got like these tiny little micro LEDs on the stairwell lighting. That would be pretty cool, like stairwell lighting and stuff like that. But outside of that, there's not a whole lot to do.
No, it's so good these days. I mean, just 5 or 8 or 10 years ago, you had to buy pretty expensive brass and then rework it to make it run worth a darn. To make anything equivalent in what you can get in plastic models these days, and I think probably Limited, Rapido, a few others are really at the cutting and MPH at the cutting edge of this stuff. It's really amazing what's happening with manufacturing.
Hey, James, I wanted to put a shout out from Dwight Crimsman here. He put up here in the Q&A for you, James, you rock. Good job. Keep the faith and looking forward to more videos. At least your wife knows where you are, safe at home.
Yeah. Yep. Thanks, Dwight. I appreciate it. I'm glad to have any positive comments, you know. And yeah, the cool thing about this hobby is we aren't out doing drugs or out in the bars late night or.
Amen. You know that.
Yeah, women they're worried about us cheating on them with, so it's pretty good. It's a pretty good, clean hobby to have with wives at least happy that we're not doing any of the crazy stuff.
Yeah, that's how I got my wife to say okay on it. As I told her, I says, it's either model railroad, be at home, or go out drinking and run around with women.
Yeah.
That's like
Go ahead, Scott.
You know, it's like your wife knows where you're at, your kids know where you're at. You get your kids involved into this, and they stay out of trouble. You know where they're at.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, it's great for that, and on the kid front, we've got to replace ourselves at some point to keep the hobby alive, and so getting the kids involved is key for me. It's a huge part of my motivation factor. This layout wouldn't be where it is if my 3-year-old didn't say he wanted to see trains running, because I was just burnt out on building layouts. But just to get trains running, you know, I was spending 40-hour work weeks on the layout after my 40-hour week day job just so I could get my 3-year-old to see the trains running, or else it would have been probably even more delayed.
I got a 5-year-old grandson. I know exactly what you're talking about, brother. Papa, when we going to see the trains run?
Yeah.
Well, once again, I would like to thank you for coming in and doing this. And I want to remind everybody about the YouTubeModelBuilders.com. Go there for all the latest information when it comes to the YouTube Model Builders team, what's going on in the Emag Hangouts and the live show. And, you know, I want to make sure everybody remembers the YouTube Model Builders Big Build Contest. Eric from imrro.com is the host of that. And like I said, go to his YouTube channel to see the videos that he's made on the description on how to do the contest. There's some good information there. And once again, go to James's YouTube channel. I think it's JLWII2000 on YouTube. Just go in there and you'll be able to see all of the reviews that he's done. I know that when I first started going on YouTube looking at videos, I watched a lot of his videos on how to build a model railroad or a layout from start to finish. I don't know if he's going to do that anymore. Yep. I think that But anyways, he's got a lot of good information there on reviews and all the newer reviews that he's going to be doing. And I want to thank him for coming on again tonight. And
Thanks for having me.
I think that's going to round out tonight's show. And until next Tuesday is going to be the Geno's show. Once again, I will bring this up. The first Tuesday is the Geno's show. The second Tuesday is the Troy. And then the third Tuesday is me. And then the fourth Tuesday of the month is Barry. And Barry has a lot of good technical stuff when it comes to decoders, sound, and all that. So everybody should go and check out their information. And so I guess until next time, we'll be seeing you all.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Yep.
Seeing you, James.
All right, thanks for talking, guys.